We are at the end of 2020, a year to either forget or a year not to remember, whichever way you want to look at it. But I always usually take a couple days just to reflect on the year that has been. And last week I came across an article published by Forbes magazine, January of 2020, really predicting the trends in leadership for the year. So I wanted to do a quick video on looking at, was Forbes accurate? Did they get their 5 trends right? Or alternatively, were they completely off the mark? So stay tuned. At the end of the video, we're going to be giving you our 9 leaders trends, top 5 trends for leadership in 2021. I am Andrew from NineLeaders, where we focus on developing the skills required for new and experienced leaders to take the business forward in 2021 and beyond. If this is the first time to the channel, a huge welcome to you. Do not forget to smash the subscribe button down below and then leave a couple comments at the end of the video. So before we jump into the video, a very big shout out to the business that brought you today's video, A&D Clothing. A&D Clothing. It's a fashion startup based here in South Africa, run by 2 very young and entrepreneurial gentlemen named David Miller and Alex Gershel. So James, thanks so much for the clobber. Appreciate it. If you'd like to check out their merchandise, you can look in the description below for the links to the Instagram page and really check out the streetwear that they've got going for themselves. So trend number 1 from Forbes was that there was going to be a big focus on applying and sustaining learning in the workplace. This for me is a hit and miss, unfortunately. Sorry for you, Forbes. Nobody could have predicted the Rona. And as we know, as we've seen from the 2008 financial crisis, when something like this, of this magnitude hits, learning and development usually takes a backseat. So I think that in certain industries, certain businesses, that was definitely the case. On the flip side of that, though, certain companies saw the value of learning and development and absolutely invested in the upskilling of their people, whether it was cross-skilling to different jobs, upskilling in their current jobs. They definitely saw the value. So again, like I said, a bit of hit and miss. We'll give you a bit of a half mark for that, Forbes. Trend number 2 was the rise of mobile learning. And this was a huge uptick. Well done, Forbes. You got this spot on. Not in the way that you expected, I don't think. With the amount of people having to change their work habits, the rise of remote working absolutely spoke into the rise of mobile learning. If you look at any analytics, any stats, just YouTube on its own, their viewership doubled over the last 6 months, or actually last 9 months. And a lot of the content on YouTube is around learning and development, learning a new skill, whether it's as basic as how to bake banana bread, or alternatively learning coding, SEO, whatever it is. There's a multitude of learning that does take place via mobile platforms. So Forbes, you got it spot on. Well done. Congratulations. Trend number 3 was group coaching and the democratization of leadership development. That's a huge word, democratization of leadership development. And what Forbes is really talking about there is that the power is put into the learner's hands as to the skills that they want to learn, rather than being in a very structured environment that you join a company and you work through different programs, different modules. The learning responsibility is definitely put onto the learner. So in this environment, this is linked to point number 1 or trend number 1. Potentially, a lot of companies downsized their learning and development teams and really put more onus on individuals to skill themselves. So again, full marks, well done. I think that trend was definitely prevalent. Again, not in the way that Forbes foresaw it, delicious English, the way Forbes foresaw it, but it definitely did lead to democratization of learning. And what we also mean by that is that learning became more freely available. We are seeing a trend, especially in the online space, where people are able to upskill themselves. They are able to spend a couple dollars and join a course, join a short program certificate, that they have the choice as to what they learn and when they learn and how they learn. So trend number 4 was the alignment to engagement surveys. And what Forbes was saying here was that business leadership would really need to be a lot more cognizant of people in their business and the feedback from people, and take that feedback and actually implement in the business. So I think this is a bit of a hit and miss, unfortunately, due to circumstances, depending on the decisions and the paths that each individual company or industry took. Certain industries were heavily impacted by the Rona, and they potentially led to downsizing, resizing, reshuffling of business units, which would obviously naturally impact on any sort of engagement surveys. Those companies that have really come out shining are the ones that have taken their people on board and said, right, how do we work through this together? Not to necessarily the sacrifice of profit, but really it's about survival at the moment. And how do we come through this year and this period in a much healthier state? And obviously in that regard, then those companies would have a higher level of engagement. So Forbes, for this trend number 4, hit and miss. Unfortunately, that's not your fault, but definitely a tick box yes and a tick box no, depending on the business and industry that you might find yourself in. Trend number 5 states that AI becomes invisible. And what Forbes is saying here is that AI is now the standard. The artificial intelligence in learning and development and leadership is really the benchmark. You cannot move your business forward without a level of automation and technology playing a role in your business, whether it's data analytics, whether it's predictions, whatever the technology plays in your business, it becomes essential. So I think this one was definitely, yeah, I'd give this probably a tick. Data was at the foundation of most business decisions that needed to be taken, whether it was downsizing, resizing, moving into a new market, and from a leadership side of things, looking at the data that you have on your people as to say, right, what are the people that we have currently, and how can we make best use of the IP and skills that are currently in our business? So Forbes, well done. You got number 5 spot on, I believe. So our rating of Forbes top 5 trends for 2020, we gave them a 3.5 out of 5. Again, still a very good result in all honesty. I think they were spot on with a number of the what's, but not necessarily the how. Nobody could have predicted in January the impact of COVID-19 and how that's impacted on the workforce. So a 3 out of 5 is not a bad result at all. So now that we've given our rating of Forbes, it's time to put our head on the block and say, what are our NineLeaders top 5 trends for leadership in 2021? Coming in number 1, we've got the continuation and the rise of emotional intelligence. If anything, 2020 taught us that leaders need to be emotionally intelligent, that self-awareness of how to lead people, when to lead people, how to do things, when to say things, the decisions that you make, how you communicate those decisions is paramount to the success of your business and the engagement of your staff. So for 2021, emotional intelligence is still going to be very high on the agenda as to how we lead in our business. Trend number 2 for 2021, we feel that design thinking and problem solving are going to be at the forefront of everything that we do in business. If anything, again, 2020 has shown us that we need to be solution driven. We all face very similar things. We're in the same storm, but we're not necessarily in the same boat. So what we do, how we go about problem solving is going to be at the forefront of what we do. And design thinking is one of those frameworks that really speaks to that. Understanding, empathizing, ideating, creating, and really testing different opportunities, potentially looking at how you can solve your solutions, bring a new product to market, et cetera, but design thinking is definitely going to be one of the top trends for 2021. Trend number 3 is learning ownership. And I think this has been coming for a long time. We've seen a change in the workforce, how teams collaborate. We've seen a rise of project management, which results in the fact that many people are no longer relying on their companies for their learning development or leadership development. They are going outside of the framework. They're going outside of their business units to really upskill themselves with knowledge and skills. So learning ownership really puts the onus on the individual rather than on the business. Gone are the days where you have a 30-year career within a business and you have specific modules, specific learning pathways that the company provides to you. Rather, your ownership is on yourself to go out and equip yourselves with the skills to be able to be more attractive in the marketplace. All right, so trend number 4 is potentially a scary one for a lot of people, and this we are calling decentralized leadership. And we call this decentralized leadership for 2 reasons. One is we are currently dealing with a highly mobile and remote workforce, and that has had to lead to a change of thinking in terms of how we lead teams. Individuals have got a lot more ownership and a lot more accountability for their own deliverables, because we need to trust our people a lot more that they are actually getting the job done. So decentralized leadership means it's not in one place necessarily. You're no longer sitting in a pod with your leader directly across from you, monitoring everything that you do, managing your day-to-day tasks, but more around trusting you to get the job done. So that's the first part of decentralized leadership. The second aspect of decentralized leadership really talks to the avoidance of hierarchical systems. In the past, or in the last 10 to 15 years, we've seen the rise of project management, where the teams come together for a short period of time, 3, 6, 9 months potentially, to really achieve a set outcome or goal. And what decentralized leadership is saying is that you might be a project leader for 9 months, finish that project, move into another project with your skill set, but you might not necessarily be leading that particular team. So again, it's that shift, that fluidity of leadership. The other aspect in terms of the project management side of things and decentralized leadership is how do we create teams to come together that have a common purpose, a common vision, and are all focused on the outcomes of that particular project team. So a couple of the skills will need to change in terms of getting those outcomes and that teamwork and cohesive teamwork working together. And the last trend, number 5, can't get away from it. We're all into it. It's technology. Technology is going to be a huge driving factor for leadership and leadership development, business decisions. We've already seen the rise of big data over the last, again, 5 to 10, 15 years. How we use that data, the analytics, the interpretation of that data. And I think that's going to be incredibly important, is not just having the data, but being able to analyze that data and the technology that sits behind that data that really enables you to give you that overview of what is happening in your business. So from a leader side of things, we're going to see a lot more use of technology, not only in development, but also in business making decisions. So that brings us to the end of our top 5 trends for 2020 versus 2021. Certainly hope you've received some value out of this video. I'd love to have your comments, whether you agree, disagree with me on both Forbes' list as well as what we foresee for 2021. If you haven't already, smash that subscribe button down below, and hope you all have an incredibly prosperous and safe 2021. Take care. Bye.